18 plus. And not because I'm going to swear, cuss, or curse, giving everybody who's in the faith system, I'm going to give everybody that warning, what we're going to get into in tonight's Facebook Live. Stuff that people don't want to face. Truths that really at the center of Alberta, Quebec, Canada, many, many, many Canadians from sometimes high society don't want to face. It's a fiction, a fantasy that really, and I've tried to teach this a lot, about the socialist and the fascist, because that's really what it is. These are humanity's greatest evils. I've ever taken these eyeballs and this mind to go through in tremendous detail like nobody else. And you will find, and I'm sorry if it offends people, but you will find Satan in this video. My day started with my good friend, a pastor, Mike Phillip, and there's a reason for it. Everything has a reason. Me and Mike had a good talk this morning. We haven't talked for a very long time. That was not the beginning or end of my day. On this day, Alberta's birthday, 120 years. The things I have read, the things I've gone through in just Alberta's history, it is nothing short of absolutely an affront to Jesus Christ and God. This video is going to go into such darkness. Darkness I've read about, seldom spoke about. But I'm going to give you the MAGA truth about Alberta. Not just Alberta, my home province, but Western Canada and all of Canada. Just how sick this really is, how effectual in the world in the last 150 years, how evil, right straight out of hell, the world has gone on the Canadian model. And I've spoken to death about this, but there are a lot of things I never ever speak about, things I've read about in tremendous detail, a lot more detail than any other Canadian I've ever known. I'm the only one who seemingly is able to research this stuff, sift through the material, and read it entirely, and not cut out pieces, parcels, or forget the dark things I don't want to remember and only focus on the things I want to remember or want to share with everybody. For Americans who watch this video, this is so dark, it's not even anything that's America. We're going to go through all the years. We're going to go through the words. We're going to go through a specific individual that, a good friend of mine, and she is a lovely human soul. Her name is Marilyn Burns. I spoke to Mike Phillip first. I didn't speak to Marilyn. I may have taken a coward's way out, and I love her to death, everybody. To tell you about this woman, I love her to death in a lot of ways. She's my intellectual equal. We share so much in political knowledge, and we have different paths in life. And this isn't sexual or any of that. This is love of another human soul that you measure up with, that you can say, hey, we have these talents. It's two people who share this, who grew from the ground up. We did it on our own, and we're able to do that. But we hit a Y in the road. And just so everybody knows, I love Marilyn to death. She is very spiritual. She's a good soul. I know that. I believe that. I know her to be that. But I need to hit this because it's things I've read about in tremendously more detail from the British Empire records of what Canada was before 1931. And just so everyone who watches this video, because it's going to get really, really dark, and anyone can take what I'm going to share in this storytelling of real MAGA history from the American perspective, so dark, it really is grabbing at Satan. If you believe in that, if you believe in Jesus Christ, this is going to go into the other flip side, what I know to be Satan. I know that to be. And I'm not trying to offend people on their faiths, their beliefs, but I'm going to give you the Christian truth and the darkness on the flip side of Alberta's dark history and a lot of Canada. A lot of Canada. I give people all the time, I give 1905, I give the Executive Powers Act. I do not go in any Alberta history before Aberhart. In Independence, all of it. I've read it all. Residential school genocide took the life out of me. I have First Peoples tagged in this who went on that dark journey with me. And there's more than just them, but these two especially went on a seriously dark, evil journey of what Canada is with me. There's also a dark evil of Alberta, Western Canada, that I'm going to go through. I've never wanted to really go through. But Marilyn Burns hit it. She hit it today. Thousands of Albertans loved it. And they say liberals in Canada rewrote Canadian history. She hits that a lot. And she's right. But so did the Conservatives. And on top of that, Marilyn, I love you to death. There is an entirely American flip side to this in Jesus Christ's name, in MAGA's name, as Donald J. Trump knows it to be, as many, many Americans, well-studied Americans, know it to be. Accurate, truthful, very, very evil. What I'm going to go through, it's going to go through a big chunk of Western Canada and Canada as a whole, its history, as it really is, and names here in Alberta, and words, evil, evil words that have done damage to the United States of America. And we have one Donald J. Trump fighting to expel 4 Canadian words, 4 Oxford words, and in fact, not the glory of somebody that, again, thousands of Albertans have glorified. This particular individual in history, in the American history, is an evil Satan beast. And I know this to be true because I've read it all. Frederick Halton, Sir Frederick Halton. And I love you, Marilyn Burns. I love you to death, to pieces. And I want this for you. I've tagged others in this. Peter Downing, obviously Mike Phillip, Jonathan Bahai, Benjamin Ebley, and 2 First Nations, Ian Bachman and Jonathan LaBelle, who went on some of these journeys with me. But here is a journey for everybody. On this night, and I can't wait anymore, I tried to do this live, and I couldn't do it inside with my daughters. For some reason, in the home, I can't do this live. I know it to be seriously chock full of evil. Sir Frederick Halton, just so every American who high Americans already know, Donald J. Trump administration, they know the real history. The real history of even Alberta. Frederick Halton, who was the Northwest Territory, which a big chunk is supposed to be the United States of America, from British Columbia to Alberta to Saskatchewan, down to Manitoba, and then ripping entirely across eastern Canada through all of populated Ontario, all of populated Quebec, and literally all of Atlantic Canada, leaving a fragment of Labrador. These are treaties America had to sign when they were much weaker. And we're going to go into the American end of the Civil War and Reconstruction phase. We're going to tell you some history that led to Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, expansion of Ontario, Quebec. Absolutely, beyond any measure that was never there before. We're going to get into some satanic words from Oxford Dictionary. They're absolutely part and parcel of Frederick Halton. Acclamation. And I'm sorry, again, I love you to death, Marilyn Burns, but this is real truth, real Canadian history, absolutely all of Alberta's history, Saskatchewan's history, the whole former territory, Northern Ontario, Quebec, absolutely big chunks of British Columbia, the division of Yukon from what was the Northwest Territory. You need to know this. First Peoples know this. Their spiritual leaders know this history because they were forsaken in it too. Pure evil under the Indian Act. Sir Frederick Halton was no hero, no great guy. He was born in England under the British Empire. He was brought through a word called acclamation. I want every American and every Canadian to know. America has published this study. Canada is an electoral autocracy. It always has been. There's never been a real We the People election ever in all of Canada's history and all of British North America's history. Never, ever, never, ever. Right out of the Luciferian is what it is. Where people were set on levels. Marilyn Burns, I love you to death. I love you to death. But this is the truth of what can only be called Satan. And it's on that video you did where thousands of Albertans gravitated to it. And I'm going to give you the truth of Sir Frederick Halton. WAG. That one. Not the American Halton. Not Fred Halton out of America, but Canada's Northwest Territories, British Empire, Sir Frederick Halton. He only ever got office through acclamation. That's not an American election word. It's not. It's an Oxford word. It's customary systems of the British Empire. And he got through office because there was nobody else. In fact, his entire party and candidates were through acclamation, meaning nobody ran against any of them. If there's this many positions, there are only this many available, eligible to hold the office. Acclamation. He did it 6 times. Number of the beast. British Empire stuff. This is pre-Canada. Pre-Canada. everything of the evil British system and its colonization, right out of Luciferian. Everything opposite of America and American Christianity. In fact, everything against the Bible, the Holy Bible, that supposedly so many from Alberta right across Canada, from the Catholic faith, believe in and subscribe to. This is not that. This is the opposite. What do I mean? What do I mean? What do I mean? Did you know that subjugation, slavery, was ended in the United States, but not the world? Certainly not the British Crown. It's still alive and well in Canada today. In fact, it's what created the Nazi Germany. Again, for those who don't know, South Africa, apartheid, and many, many other historical, genocidal, crazy, right out of the pits of hell systems. And anyone who fought in World War II, and sadly, all of our veterans are almost extinguished, gone from this world. That memory is about to be lost. You want to know hell and you want to know the hell beast? That's Canada's model in action on one of its extremes. One of its extremes. Created by the British system, the jewel called Canada One, that continues and forever generates this stuff and continues as a low-level demon crawling around, continuing on. I know people are going, Dave, this is hardcore. This is crazy. Folks, American history, 1866, end of the Civil War. There was no income tax in America. America was in a reconstruction phase. America faced new challenges in rebuilding America, making it great again. There's an amendment called the 15th Amendment. Guess what Canada did? Created itself. Guess what the United States had to do when Canada rolls out this Constitution? Says, hey, the British Empire, satanic, evil as the Spanish Empire, Portuguese Empire, French Empire, goes on and on. They're evil all around America. There are no free people in the world. There's nothing but slaves. Don't ever kid yourself, Americans, because it still exists today. Unequal people everywhere. Everywhere. Canada will blow you away just how evil it is in these time periods. They talk about a lot, but nobody ever gives credence or credit to America and the 15th Amendment. After the Civil War, where Americans lost more lives in every war they've ever been in their entire history, going back to the War of Independence, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, you name it, America's been in a lot of wars, more Indian wars than anybody else in North America. And you know what? No death toll matches that of the Civil War, where they fought Satan, the beast, and they won. And out of that came the 14th Amendment, but also the 15th Amendment. In comes Canada and the forced treaties. Nobody talks about that. Here comes Sir Frederick Halton. Real history through acclamation. He didn't win any elections. In fact, again, number the B6, he went on through acclamation. Never had to fight any elections. He was acclaimed because no one was eligible to vote. Why is that? Where would Marilyn Burns, God bless her, I love her. I love her to death. She is a godly woman. But Marilyn, in those years of him, would you be a lawyer? Would you be able to run a political party? Would you be able to start a political party? Would you be allowed to vote? No. You'd be a washerwoman or a brothel woman by force. Monopoly of force in the crown system. That's what would happen to you in McLeod. I know, because my family has been in Alberta since that time. My family has seen and logged all of it. All of it. Marilyn in her video goes on to talk about the Lougheeds, the birth of the Lougheeds. Well, Peter Lougheed's grandfather was my great-grandfather's banker and loaner so he could buy a property. He could buy a property. Did you know what it meant? Not in the United States, but in Canada. Did you know if you were a man and you weren't in subject class, you couldn't vote? Women didn't vote. Indians couldn't vote. They were under the Indian Act. Savage Indians didn't vote. And it didn't matter what race. They created a widespread Negro. Worse off than the American Negro. And you know the other name for that at that time period. Well, guess what? The 15th Amendment ended all that. Canada was fighting tooth and nail on its evil to stop the settlers that came across the creation of Alberta and Saskatchewan, all during that period. Oh, he didn't get thrown out of office. He became the Chief Justice of Saskatchewan. He was well taken care of. Do you know the average age of an Alberta or Saskatchewanian in those time periods? Way lower than America. Literacy way lower too. Was 50 years old. I know. I have all the men in my family's lineage. Did you know my grandfather lived to 58? That was an old man. My grandfather died at 58. And in fact, to find a male in my family to live past 60 is a rarity. My father's the first one. My father is the first Bjorkman in 6 generations to make it past the age of 58. Yeah. Yeah. We talk about Sir Frederick Holt, and he lived to 84. An insane number. He got all the health care, all of that, which no other Albertan or Saskatchewanian or anybody else carved out of the Northwest Territories got. He was Sir Frederick Halton, part of the British Empire long before 1931, where there was no real Alberta. Alberta was a colony district of the British Empire. End of story. We were subjects who worked tooth and nail. And if you were a woman, you were a rape victim anytime anyone wanted, but not in Canada, anywhere in Canada. It wouldn't be that case till 1982. Do you know what America defined in law? By 1870? The crime of rape. The crime of rape that would take Canada another 100 years to define. Oh, I know. Canadians don't want to believe it. You're lying. Go look it up. Go look at precedent law in Canada. Go look at sexual assault. It was only sexual assault in Canada if the father said it was, or the husband said it was, and you better prove it. For a very long time. That took past 1931 to change that around. Oh, yeah. And voting rights were only bestowed upon males if you owned property. If you were chosen by the Crown, you were in that class structure. 15th Amendment never happened in Canada. That took a very, very long time. Many, many decades. It's push-pull at the United States. Did you know that the war against Spain, USA went the other way? The creation of Alberta in Canada, 1905, is in response to the America-Philippines War, 1902. Oh, look at us. We got it all done. The population didn't call for a province. No, it didn't. Again, acclamation. Hear me when I say acclamation, meaning all the politicians eligible for office was the entire population of voting class. Acclamation. Number 6 of the beast. 6 election cycles before Alberta was a province, 1905. Don't tell me they deserved any provincial status or anything else. You had an entire slave and savage class of people dying well before their time, living in squalor, unlike anything in the United States of America. I know, my family was there. My family was there before Alberta was a province. Again, Peter Lougheed's grandfather was my great-grandfather's banker. My great-grandfather worked on the railroad. He built that railroad, 1870. We can go through years. We can go through satanic words out of Oxford, out of Canada's model, out of the Executive Powers Act of Alberta, and every other carved-out province. Because again, they expanded Ontario, Quebec. They expanded small postage stamp Manitoba by leaps and bounds. They enforced the Indian Act. There was a rebellion, the Northwest Rebellion. Indians had real numbers. At least they did. They outnumbered the British Crown before that. But through genocide, they'd be wiped out. And they did. Through military force. They did. Satanic. Those murderous rapes and genocide are nowhere near the American Indian Wars for all of America's history. America has the lowest. In fact, they sacrificed the most American settlers versus Indian deaths. And that's bow and arrow versus gunpowder. And even America and all of that, and some of the crazy, was nowhere near what happened in Canada under the British Empire rule, which continued all the way to what you know as Westminster. Evil, centralized, autocratic from a divine elite, when America was just a middle power. And it was the British Empire, the most powerful Rome ever created. Twice the Rome in any measure ever. The most powerful empire the world has ever known. USA may, through energy and technology, match that today, but not by veracity or no way, shape, or form by cruelty or, in fact, genocide. America is nothing of that. America, on a measuring stick against the British Empire, is a godlike solution. And really, Russia sees that, China sees that, the Allies found that, everyone agreed that evil of the British system, French, Portuguese, Spanish, which America fought in all this time period, every tit for tat, you watch the Great Wall of Canada form. Let me give you 3 other evil satanic words. Customs. Border crossing, you're going to go through customs. It's worldwide. Everyone's got it. Customary law is British. America is natural law. Laws you're born with. There's no customary law anywhere in the Constitution for any equal American citizens. In fact, it's only found in Canada's Constitution. Tons of customary law, uncodified, goes into the customary law. Customs. That's how the Crown generates money. That's how the world steals money. Customs. Where do you get duty to the Crown? Duties, customs, And duties paid. How the crown got all of its taxes. Put so much duty, America revolted, Canadians never revolted, not in their history. Another evil word, duty. But you want to know the worst word in all of it? Royalties. Royalties. Unequal royalties, meaning depending on how high you are on the structure, because people aren't equal. There's superior, even divine people, and then there's lower class people. Sir Frederick was a divine elite, lived to 84 years old, while the average Albertan and Saskatchewanian and Northwest Territory person lived to 50. The average first person in that time period lived to 37. That's out of the dark ages of the fall of Rome. Those numbers. That's Canada's numbers. Not matched or found in the United States, even with the Civil War. Think about that. What did I just tell you that you can all look up? The Civil War of the United States, all of the casualties of every American war up till today does not equal the losses of the American Civil War. Spain went on, did slavery. We can look at Canada's 1897. We can look at where America was with Spain, destroying slavery and the Spanish Empire, who still had all that. Going out there, destroying it. Canada responds every single time, building the Great Wall of restrict American expansionism. This is our elite property. We will suppress America and we the people. That's why Alberta and Saskatchewan were created. That's why the First Peoples were wiped out. That's why the treaties were created the way they were, at least in numbered. I won't go named, but I will tell you absolutely all of Canadian numbered treaties were created for that purpose. Push aside the Indian, lie, cheat, steal it all through genocide, full-on Nazified reality, full-on apartheid reality, dehumanization. This is stuff right out of the pits of hell. That's Canada and all the British Crown up to 1931. There is not a single good one in the lot of them. It's why I go right to Aberhart and I don't go into any of that history, because you are right out of the pits of hell. In truth, in reality, and Americans know it, logged it, have it in history. It's absolutely entirely MAGA. That's a history lost to all of Canada. British Empire history. And you all know it to be true, because you know the Amendment Westminster. And we can go on and on, the creation of income tax. Why America created income tax in 1913. I gave you 3 satanic words, and there's a 4th on elections. That's how America dealt with it. Then they went on to tariffs, where Trump is returning them to. We must fight the socialists and fascists with tariffs, because it works. Because income tax, we can't take on the world. We can't push that weight on the people. We can't play their game. That's the truth. If you think Alberta is a good place with a good history, or some kind of reality that does not include that truth, you're sadly mistaken again. I love you, Marilyn Burns. I love your soul. I love everything about you. We are so compatible, out of sync on age and time, but the reality is of who we are, and our souls are very old. We're both very intelligent, and this is a gift I give you, because we're in dark times, and these dark realities of the crown cannot be washed over. We can't grab these British root books these bastardizers of Oxford right out of the pits of hell and discard Christianity as Americans have known it to be. They've been literate longer than we are. Webster's is older than what we are. We're in an Oxford perversion, a massive twisted propagation, a false reality, a pure evil, a cult upon a people's, and we do evil things, and we allow our system to create the most evils the world's ever seen. It needs to stop. Canada needs to be dismembered and redesigned. It has to end. On this 120th birthday of Alberta, there is nothing to celebrate. There is no truth of any British system or anything prior to Aberhart that leads you anywhere other than straight to hell. I don't mean to be mean. Again, I love Marilyn. She's intelligent. She's got a soul. She's got a heart. But this is a British reality, a falsification that does not match American truth, MAGA truth, Republican truth. It doesn't match American Christian truth, Democrat or Republican alike. It does not match. And all the greatest of human rights achievements, civil rights and natural rights that people are born with, was achieved and grown in America, and Canada had to try to mimic. But like a demon, it's a lie. It's always a lie. And they've, for thousands of years, gotten good at these lies. It's time to shine a light, a holy light on that. And I don't mean to offend people for their different religions. Christ is what I follow. It's what I know. I have read other religions, but it's the one I find myself with. And it's also what founded this country in its inception and the United States. It's what I gravitate to. It's the best way I can express this truth and share it to all of you. And I don't tell people you have to believe in this, you have to subscribe to it. I'm just giving you the historical accuracy as it really is. And you want to know monsters of humanity? You will find it in the application of these crown colonial systems. The worst human atrocities known to man right here in Canada, and then redesigned in places taken from that design and gone right off the charts. Nazi Germany, South Africa, apartheid. In fact, you can go on and on from 1867. You're hard-pressed to find any worse examples. That's the truth. This video needs to be shared. People need to know that truth and not celebrate it. You have to face these truths if you want to, or you can pretend. Like when you go to church or a synagogue or a temple, you go do that and you go pretend. Whether it's Muslim, Judaist, Christian, Catholic, there's so many of all these different faith spin-offs. But if you want to pretend in Canada, you want to go to your religious ceremonies, you want to pray to God, you're not praying to God, you're praying down below. That's what you're praying to, Old Testament kind of stuff. And there is no God that's going to save those who go forward and do the evil, accept the evil, and try to pretend that it's something else when it's clearly not. And the only good example before us that does try its best, it's still not perfect, but it tries and it showcases that growth, is the United States of America. And this history is American history and American truth. And people need to share it. People need to know. And Canadians need to really wake up, because you're on the wrong side of this. And if anything you take from this, learn these words I shared with you. Learn these years, these histories of what you did in response to America in America's evolution, the American Webster evolution and spiritual growth of equality of the person, not divinity of the person, subjugation of peoples, or dehumanization of peoples. These are the recipes of evil, pure down there in the pits of hell evil. And I share that. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry people are hurt, but this is truth and it's got to get out there. And I give it on Alberta's birthday. Things I never wished to ever talk about, had to talk about, because thousands of Albertans are sharing a half-truth, missing an entire American truth side to this. God's truth of it as it really is. And if you don't have God's truth, what are you left with? Pits of hell. And I'm sorry, that's the truth. Share, share, share. Get the video out there. God bless everybody. Bye now. 18 plus. Told you.